Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to, another Aussie. Although when you listen to this man's voice and his accent, you're thinking, are you sure? Well, I can tell you that he's from New South Wales, just south of Wollongong. He's the founder of Verdict Sales Authority, and get this, a serving police prosecutor, which is a very interesting combination, and this is why this is going to be a very intriguing conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Blair McGee.
Darren, good afternoon. Good morning, rather. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on here. Thank you.
Now, that accent is not Aussie accent. It's from the Northern Hemisphere. Where did it all start for you, my friend? And what has brought you to this country?
Well, Darren, my accent's from Scotland. Often mistaken for being Irish, amongst other things. But yeah, I'm from Scotland. And I came to Australia, about 16 years ago now. It's came here. I'll go back to the beginning. So I fell into sales back in the UK, and what happened was I was in the military, and I left the military, and I was looking for a job. I didn't know what I was looking for, and as I said to you just beforehand, I'm perhaps showing my age a little bit, but the jobs were advertised in the newspaper, and it wasn't advertised as a sales job. It was clearly a hook to get you into the office where they were going to sell you the job. Anyway, I got in there and got into a very, very dingy office. No computers on the desk. I think the sales manager was smoking from memory. And it was, a dingy office in an even dingier city. And he sat me down and told me that I could make a fortune as a commission-only salesperson. And now I almost left a Blair-shaped hole in the door getting out. But he said, no, sit down, let me tell you. He says, for your first 5 weeks, I'm going to give you £500 a week while you learn your trade. I thought, well, that's great. That gives me 5 weeks to find a proper job. But what happened was I went on a training course, and they gave me a 12-step guide. And the training course, I remember his facilitator's name was Jim. I remember him to this day. And he said, if you do exactly as I'm telling you, if you follow these 12 steps, people will buy from you. So being the naive young guy that I was at the time, I went out to my first appointment and knocked on the customer's door. Now it was, I'm not sure if you're aware of the reputation that double glazing sales has in the UK. Certainly your British listeners will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's much like used car salesmen. That's the way they were seen. Hasten to add, I was not like that. However, that it was the kind of reputation. And so I knocked on this door, hands shaking, sweaty palms. I said, hello, I'm Blair, and walked in. And I was so nervous and so naive. I pulled out the little book that they gave me with the 12 steps. I said, I'm going to put this next to me. And there's 12 steps here. And they've told me if I go through these 12 steps, you're going to buy from me. So I did. They were very patient. They were very patient people, because I think it took me about 3 hours to get through my 12 steps. And at the end of that, they bought. You could have knocked me over with a feather.
First sales call, first sale.
First sales call. I couldn't believe it. And then the next person bought, and then the next person. I think I did 4 sales in my first week.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, this is me. This is what I do. I'm hooked. So I continued to sell in the UK for a long time before the GFC happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the GFC was a lot of what I sold I mean, there was B2B in there as well, but a lot of what I sold was high-end consumer goods. And what we found is our leads dried up. Our conversion stayed the same,
Hmm.
but the leads dried up, and we just weren't able to get as much. So I took the opportunity to move here to Australia. So rather long-winded answer to your question, what brought you to Australia? But there it is.
And uh, obviously, the customers that you sold were, and we'll maybe talk about this, that in ethical selling, I'm not saying
Yes.
double glazed windows are not ethical, but
No, no.
there would have been a process for these customers or potential customers to go through where they were putting their hand up and there was an interest, right?
Yeah,
In terms of double glazing, reduce energy costs and stuff like that.
absolutely.
So there's always a problem that we have to solve, but the way you
Indeed.
went about it obviously made the customer feel comfortable that you weren't
Indeed.
there just to, I guess, line your own pockets. You were there to provide a solution for them. How much of that do you think came down to, and I won't call it beginner's luck, but the fact that you kind of said you fell into it, but you learned a process, you had a 12-step booklet that you used, and you actually
Yeah,
had it in front of you with the
absolutely.
client, and you said, I'm following this. And by the way, they said, if I go through all these 12 steps, you're going to buy for me.
Yeah.
How disarming do you think that was for the customers?
Well, they seem surprised. I'll give you that. Yeah, they seemed quite surprised. But I think the way I explained it as well is this is going to answer all your questions. This 12 steps is not designed to cajole.
Mm,
It's not designed to manipulate you in any way, shape, or form. It's to make sure all your questions are answered, um, and doubt is removed.
mm,
And then by the end of this process, it's going to become inevitable.
yeah.
I think I certainly hope that's the way I delivered that. Um, Obviously, then that process became ingrained,
Mm,
and I think that's what sets what sets great performers apart from others. It's the presence of a process. It's the presence of I'm going to answer all these questions in advance.
mm,
I'm going to make sure that by the time we get, and no doubt we'll come to this a bit later, but by the time we get to that close, that eventual asking for the business, the objections simply don't arise.
mm, yeah. And it presupposes also that, I guess, the interest that was created in the beginning for them to say even yes to an appointment said some of their questions may have been answered, or there would have been something that would have been a level of interest that prompted them to want to sit down and explore further this particular opportunity. And then how you presented yourself, because I firmly believe the customers are not necessarily looking for the specific product, they're looking for a solution to a problem, and the person who can actually help them make that educated buying decision is more than likely going to be the person that gets the sale, gets the deal.
Absolutely, it's the old pain point
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sales trainers have spoke about ad nauseum.
yes,
Fix the pain point. And that's that plenty of sales methods regurgitated over the years have
yeah,
spoken about that. But it's nonetheless very, very true and very valid.
yeah. And so you come to Australia, GFC.
Mhm.
You mentioned the conversions were still okay, but the leads were drying up. So you thought, I'll just go and live in a maybe a country that has an equally competitive cricket team, maybe. and uh, and you chose so did you come to Sydney or you?
Yeah, well, on the cricket thing, first of all, if I may address that, Darren, I still consider myself 1,000,000% Scottish. Now,
Okay.
the reason I say that is I can hear a cricket score and not have a clue what it means. Uh,
Good, good. There you go.
so
All right.
the
So
day that changes, I'm no longer entirely Scottish. But
no, that's okay.
sorry,
We won't talk about cricket.
indeed.
Um, so you come to Australia and you then ended up in, so you've got a military background, you fell into
Hmm.
sales, you
Hmm.
got hooked on commission sales, you've come to
Yeah,
Australia in the GFC,
yeah,
and then you were telling me you joined the police force.
I did. I did. I thought, you know what, this, and I thought, you know what, let's just go steady. Let's go for something steady, reliable, easy. Being responsible for results, that's no good. You know what I mean? Let's go for something simple and easy, and that's why I joined the police. And I lasted a couple of years before I went, you know what, I miss sales. So
Mm,
then since then, I've always had a side gig in sales again because
yeah.
I think all of us do it because we like the win, right? We get hooked on the wins.
Mm,
And I think I certainly hope the best salespeople are all like that. Um, we enjoy playing for high stakes, and so I got back into it. And hey, the money's not too bad in sales either, so that was just a delightful bonus.
yes.
Um,
Yes.
so yeah, I joined the police. I did regular policing for a lot of years before I became a prosecutor. And sorry,
Well, and that's an interesting thing. So I said I love to get something more steady. I'll keep the side gig of sales. So I like the maybe the injection of additional cash. So being a police officer for 2 years, what was it that all of a sudden, well, a couple of years, I think you mentioned,
yeah,
what
no,
was it that
it was 8 years actually before I
before you
moved.
became a prosecutor?
Yeah, so yeah, so I did general duties policing for all that time because it was wonderful. It gave me 5 days off in a row. That's five
Okay.
days of selling. Uh,
Yeah. Okay.
so so it took me a long time to step away from the ability to get out and sell on those days, and yeah, so I did that for a lot of years before I became a prosecutor.
And what was it that prompted you to become a prosecutor? So you've got a history in selling, obviously a
Mhm.
military background. You would have gone through police training,
Yeah.
and then you've kept your selling methodology and your selling processes through the whole
Mhm.
thing. What was it about, I guess, specifically the prosecution side that was attractive to you? Because we want to talk about some of the similarities between what you do today in a
Yeah,
courtroom
absolutely.
and selling.
Well, the prosecution is the close. So if you attend a job as a police officer, you'll go there, you'll gather all your evidence, you'll provide it to the prosecutor, and that prosecutor is the one that brings everything to a close, that reaches the conclusion, that gets the win. And I thought,
Mm,
here's the job for me. Here's something in policing where I can get a win every day. Every day I can get a win or a loss,
yeah.
and so you do all the formal training, which is long and arduous, um, and then you step into a courtroom. And when the actual courtroom training began, I was blown away at the similarities between selling and prosecuting a criminal case. It it blew my mind. It's the same process, and I think prosecutors and defense lawyers, salespeople, they have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Um, they enjoy playing to win. There are high stakes, uh, you know, in place, and we get one shot at it. There's no reruns,
Mm,
and if we don't control the conversation as a salesperson or as a prosecutor, we don't control the outcome, and either a criminal walks free or a sale walks out the door.
mm.
And yeah, the similarities between them are really quite astounding, which is why the verdict method was created to bring that courtroom psychology into the training room, into the boardroom.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I'm curious. So, did you? I'm assuming you would have gone through some sort of legal training, law degree
Yeah,
as
it's in house.
part of the
Yeah,
training. Yeah,
it is. But what you also learn is that training has very little to do with prosecuting a case.
right.
Um, and it's being on your feet, and it's under nothing prepares you for the first time you stand up in court. And once again, I was back at that first customer's doorstep again, hands sweaty, shaking, voice cracking.
And your little book with a 12-step process.
Well, exactly. No 12-step process in this case. but nonetheless a structure. And so,
So talk to me about that first, because I'm really interested in the psychology behind this. That people who prosecute, people who are in the legal fraternity, very good. And I've always admired lawyers for their ability to retain information, to process information, think quickly in terms of precedents and stuff like that.
absolutely.
But there's another skill set entirely, which is what you're talking about in terms of how to control a courtroom, how to control a boardroom, how to tell a story that removes doubt and
Yes.
places certainty in the minds of the people who are there to make a decision. From your perspective, having all the legal background that you went through in terms of the training, what were some of the key principles that you used in the courtroom, say on that very first day, and I'm not saying you won the case or lost the case, that's beside the point, but that enabled you to be effective and said, you know what, this is very similar, if not identical, to a selling environment.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I never walked into court hoping for a good result, ever. It's much like, again, like selling. If you don't know your case before you walk in, you're done for
Yeah,
because you can be sure the other guy does.
yeah,
Um, and once again, if you don't know your case, you're going to sow doubt in the mind of a magistrate or a jury if it was a higher court matter. You're going to sow doubt. So the preparation is key. That's one of the principles. And then you've got uh, evidence-based persuasion. So once again, when it comes to sales, we have to give our clients, our prospects, all that evidence. We can't ask them just to accept.
mm,
You know, we've got the best solution for your problem. If I stood up in court and said, Your Honor, I'm pretty sure he's guilty, Your Honor, and you should convict on that, I'm pretty sure I would get a not guilty
yeah,
verdict, and it's exactly the same in sales. If if we don't provide all the evidence to back up our assertion
mm,
that this is a guilty person, they're going to walk out of the court.
mm,
Our opening argument is like the icebreak that we have. And the first time we meet our clients is an opening argument in court. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to lay out. Let me explain to you the case I am going to make to you.
mm,
Uh, and then I'll make that case. After I make that case, I'm going to get while I'm making that case, I'm going to preempt the objections that I know are going to come, because we need to neutralize again
yeah,
within the courtroom environment and the sales environment. I have to anticipate the defense. I have to know what those objections are likely to be, and
mm,
I have to neutralize those before they come up. Again, directly from sales. It then comes to questioning. The defense case starts, and I get a chance to ask questions. And again, those are controlled questions. I'm not having a chat with an
mm,
accused person. Every single question, like sales, has to be guiding. Uh, we use questions to guide the magistrate, to guide a jury to a decision. And that's what we use questions for. And there's any any prosecutor, any defense lawyer will tell you one thing: you never ever ask a question you don't already know the answer to,
yeah, yeah.
and that certainly has parallels within sales.
So here's a question for you, Blair.
Yeah,
Often there are, I mean, if I talk to sales leaders and sales teams, I'll often ask the question that who loves to be in sales and who loves to be sold to? and it's very rare that even people in sales put up their hand and say, "I love to be sold to."
Absolutely.
And so there's this concept of, and it comes from the legal fraternity of leading the witness, and that
Mm,
is you have a certain method of thinking, you have a certain method of question asking, you've got a narrative you want to get to a conclusion to prove your point beyond reasonable doubt.
absolutely.
How attached or detached are you from the outcome that can lead you? Because have you actually realized through a case, for example, that perhaps the information that's been presented maybe lead to a different conclusion? Because and I don't know how to ask the question, but it's this thinking around leading the witness. Because there's a lot of sales teams out there that are
Mm,
so product focused. They'll ask the questions that are geared around their product to try and retrofit their product into a perceived need to get what they think is the best outcome, which, by the way,
absolutely.
may not be the best outcome for the customer.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I think what I'm a great believer in that deals are lost in moments and not meetings. And I'm sure everyone listening has watched a deal fall over and not known exactly why. Um, and $50,000 deal doesn't always fall over in a meeting. It falls over, and it doesn't fall over because the rep didn't work hard enough.
Mm,
Um, it falls over in the moment that the rep couldn't answer a question, the moment the rep didn't put that customer first, like you're saying,
hmm
and as you say, as soon as that rep becomes so laser focused on I need to achieve this for me, and stops putting that customer first, customer senses that,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's when deals are lost.
Mm.
Absolutely. If that's what you were asking, I think that's what you're asking.
Well, it is. It's because the art of questioning is very, very important. And I often say to sales leaders, and particularly around working with their team, you've got to give the team product knowledge, product training, but you've also got to teach them the art of ethical sales. And that is
Absolutely.
if through your investigation, interrogation, your qualification process and discovery, if you find through that process that the solution that you're going to provide is not the best fit for that particular customer, you've got to say that that's not the best fit and make a recommendation for something else.
Absolutely.
So don't be
Abs-
closing for the sake of closing so you can get the deal because that's self-serving.
exactly right. And I think we've all, or at least the ethical, no, all ethical salespeople will have had that that experience when we do say that to a customer.
Mm,
We do say, this isn't for you. Um, and if, again, I'll draw to come back to your original question, I'll draw the parallel with the court environment. As a prosecutor that works for the state,
yeah,
my job is not to win.
yeah,
My job is to guide the court to the correct decision. And yeah, the parallels are huge.
mm,
Uh, and once again, and again, it comes to making the appropriate concessions. If, then to draw the parallel, if within my case a glaring hole opens up in the middle of it, if a witness says something that I didn't expect them to say,
yeah,
or because it happens, let's be honest, someone says something that completely derails the case, and my head's in my hands, and I'm thinking, oh dear. Um, what I then have to do towards the end of that is make those concessions
mm,
in that closing argument. Your Honor, the prosecution will have issues with X, Y, and Z. And that does the same in front of a magistrate, if it's a magistrate only. That does the same as the magistrate as it would do in front of a customer. And that is build credibility,
mm,
build trust, so that the next time I come before that magistrate, Mr. McGee's going to tell me as it is. He's not going to ever attempt to, you know, polish the proverbial when it's not possible. So yes, and within the sales environment, that's when we may get the call 6 months later. I spoke to you. Gave me good advice. I know somebody else that your product may be perfect for.
Mm.
And, through that ethical through that ethical selling method, it creates those referrals and it brings in business. As you say, we might walk away from it on the day, but maybe in 6 months' time we'll get that call.
Well, and that's where sales is the ultimate form of service, because if you're in front of a customer and something pops up in the process where perhaps you think, well, this person doesn't qualify, they're not ready, it's not something they really want, they might have thought they did, but they don't, and here's the evidence to support that, then I'd be doing the unethical thing to try and close them just to get a
Absolutely.
sale, because in the short term, it might be good because it's great, but what does that do in terms of your long-term credibility? And does it increase, which it probably does, the risk of them having buyer's remorse and looking to get out of the contract? Such
Of
as,
course.
like, if you look back and looked at your sales career in the UK with the double glazing, you'd probably know this off the top of your head in terms of the number of customers that were satisfied versus dissatisfied
Yeah.
because of how you helped them to make a buying decision as distinct from selling them something that you thought they needed because you knew that there was a dollar sign at the end of the transaction.
And you can see that.
Mm.
You can see that through cancellation rates. There were sales reps in that industry that had upward of 30% cancellation rates,
Wow.
that were just there to pressure, to push, to manipulate.
Mm.
And the second they walked out the door, the person, they wake up the next day, think, "What just happened?" No, the problems weren't solved. They
Yeah.
were, yeah. Uh, I have some horror stories that I won't bore you with, but some of them are quite funny. The
Yeah. And we'd all have them in sales and hopefully not our own stories.
No,
But what I'm getting here though is that as a good salesperson, just as a good police prosecutor, you have to have the capability of disassociating from the perfect outcome.
indeed,
Like when you start a case, a prosecution case, I guess the expectation is that when the case is then presented to the court and you are the lead prosecutor, the expectation would be that this person's guilty and we need to prove their guilt. But what
absolutely.
you're saying is, well, I've got to make sure that I present the evidence to the point where the truth is there so that people can make the best educated decision based on the evidence that's presented.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Now, and again, if there are holes in that, it's my job to say it.
Yeah.
I serve the court
Yeah.
first and foremost, and that's like us for our customers. We serve our customers.
Mm.
Our we're there to help them make the right decision. Now, more often than not, that's going to be our product. It's going to be our service. Uh, but it's absolutely incumbent on us that
Yeah.
when it's not, we make that appropriate concession and we say, you
Mm.
know what, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
We all go home. We sleep a lot better at night, and we can go to work with our heads held high that we're doing the right thing by everyone.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that because, as you said before, if you are honest, ethical, upfront, and transparent to say, well, this is probably not the solution for you right now, based on what you just shared with me, that may change in 3 months or 6 months' time. But what
Exactly
you've
right.
done is you've planted a seed for that person to remember you.
Yeah.
And they're likely to come back to you when the time is right, or they might send something to you, which you said before, that may be a better fit for that particular product or solution.
And here's the thing: they have two of our competitors going in after us,
Mm.
that have a very similar offering,
Yeah.
but yet we're the ones that says, "Hang on, at the moment, this isn't for you." Our competitors go in and go, "Yeah, absolutely. This is, we need to go here full steam ahead." Who comes out looking the best? We do.
You do.
Um, and and then when we go back, that credibility is built. We're the ones that are going in there. We're the ones acting in their best interests. They have
Mm.
that faith in us, and we get the sale. We close the business.
So let's talk about structured frameworks and the verdict method because the verdict method sounds very legal, very processy.
Well, you know what it is. But here's the thing, and we talk about process, and all top performers in all companies all have a process. They just don't know it.
Mm.
Um, it's in, it's intuitive. They've developed it over years, and that's a process they follow.
Mm.
Now, the problem with intuition is you can't train it. um, but what we can do, and what the verdict method does do, is it takes that, it forms a process that everyone can follow from day one. So the verdict method's effectively a five-step process.
Yep.
Um, so we start with our case theory, um, and it's exactly what we were just talking about. Now, what that is that's like our opening address in prosecutions, and it's developing a proposal built around the client's decision-making process and their needs, not our product.
Hmm.
Exactly, exactly what you were talking about. And we may lose some people right there. You know, we may lose some clients right there, and that's the point at which we should lose them.
Mm.
Um, because as salespeople, as you say, we're the ultimate service providers, and we want to provide that service. So we, at the same time, it is a service telling people, you know, this isn't for you right now. So we develop our case theory, and then we go on to our evidence based persuasion, and that is building an irrefutable case, and we do that through evidence, through demonstrated value at every step. And obviously, this is different for each and every single business.
Mm.
It looks different for everybody. And then we move on to one of the most important, I believe, which is the preempting of objections. I have never, as a salesperson, enjoyed objections. I don't think many of us have. Maybe there's some people out there that just love it. Uh,
Well, if they're argumentative and they want to prove that they're right,
Indeed,
maybe. But objections are also uh, natural. They're just people are going to have questions, and it's how you interpret what an objection is. From my perspective, objection is simply an indication that the customer hasn't got all the information yet from which to make an educated purchasing decision.
exactly, exactly. And I think once again, sales trainers have said this ad nauseum over the years. Objections are a request for more information. That's
Mm.
effectively what they are. So we have to preempt that.
Yeah.
I've never walked into court thinking, "Whew, hope the defense don't object to anything," or I've never looked through a case and thought, "Oh well, that's fine. I can't identify where any objections are going to arise." And we must do exactly the same in sales.
Mm.
We have to think, right, let's look at this client's situation. Let's look at the market. Let's see what else is out there. Let's look at pricing points. Let's take all of that and see where are they going to where are they going to object
Yeah.
potentially at the end if I don't cover this off beforehand. So that's what we have to do, and that is absolutely the job. We have to anticipate the defense,
Mm.
and in doing so, what we do is we close that door. And again, it's about closing those doors, making sure that we've covered off on that in a way that those objections simply don't arise. We then get to the defense case, or the cross examination. Now, we should use questions to guide uh, rather than to gather. I I really I genuinely believe that. Of course, there's an evidence gathering stage, but at this stage, we should be using evidence questions to guide. And as I said earlier, there's a saying in that both prosecutors, defense lawyers, all use is: you don't ask a question you don't already know the answer to. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what we're doing is we're trying to bring that client in a sales environment round, we're trying to help them see. Uh,
So just on that, when you say questions to guide rather than gather, are you saying they have to be relevant questions that will move the customer, the prospect, the magistrate forward
Absolutely.
to make their own educated decision based on the
Absolutely.
information that's being presented?
Absolutely. We're not there for a chat.
Mm,
Be that in the court environment or the sales environment. Our questions, every word we say in court must serve a purpose,
yeah.
and that should be the same in the sales process. So many reps, so many lose control of that process.
Hmm.
They let it go off on a tangent. They let the customer. I say let, perhaps let's the wrong word, but they don't control that process. And in court, I when a when a witness goes off on a tangent that's something completely irrelevant that only distracts from the final decision making process, it's my job to pull them back in gently.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes not so gently when it's defendants, but mostly gently. And in the sales environment, it's definitely a gentle process. We gently have to bring them back in uh, to to that structure, to the conversation that we want to be having.
Mm,
Uh, how those questions to show them, how our product, our service is going to solve their particular problem. So we must keep control of that. That's vital. And in doing so, when we do that, we've asked we've asked all those questions. We've got the client to tell us. They've told us their pain points. They've told us why our product, our service. Uh, we've used those questions to get them to tell us what we're going to solve the problem for them.
mm,
Um, and at the end of that, we get to the close or the verdict, as we call it. Now, at that point, when we send a jury out of the room or a magistrate off the bench to make a decision, we're done. If we haven't made our case,
yeah.
if we've left out, and in court, well, certainly in the criminal jurisdiction, we operate on the basis of beyond reasonable doubt. So we have to, I always say, obviously there's a civil jurisdiction. I don't want to bore your listeners with legalities, which works on the balance of probabilities, which is the way I always describe it is it's 51% sure is the balance of probabilities, 99% sure is beyond reasonable doubt. Now, we can never remove doubt, and 1,000,000%, 100% for our
Yeah.
clients, we'd be irresponsible to think we could and arrogant. However, we have to have that customer. It's like what you mentioned earlier about the earlier clients and double glazing things. They have to be happy the next day.
Mm,
They have to be okay. I'm satisfied enough that this is the solution to my problem, and this is going to help my business. It's going to help me. We send the decision maker out, and what do they have to make their decision? They have the evidence we've prepared. We've given them. And again, that's our evidence-based persuasion earlier on in the sales prosecution, the sales process. Sorry. They then have the questions we've asked. Again, tying everything down.
mm,
That's what questions need to be. They need to be tying our argument down. We then make a closing argument. Now, our closing argument in court is the same as it is within sales. It should be, here's what I've told you so far. Here's what I said at the beginning. Remember at the beginning, we said I was going to tell you X, Y, and Z. I was going to solve
mm,
problems A, B, and C. Well, here's the evidence that I provided for you that we could do that. Here's the testimonials from other customers. Here's the benefit to your business that I've demonstrated during that persuasion stage. The questions that have been asked have led to this. We'll go over that again, and then we're going to ask them to make a decision.
Mm.
We don't get a second chance at it. So they go off, and what the verdict method does is it brings us to a close that feels natural, it feels inevitable, and it does never, ever, ever feel pressured. That has been removed, and it should be the conclusion, the natural conclusion of a well presented case. I think, sorry, forgive me.
No, no, keep going.
Um, I think when going slightly tangential, but so many sales, so many sales trainers, um, when a team is underperforming, they look to motivation,
Mm.
um, and I'm a firm believer that motivation follows results. It doesn't create them. Uh, I think underperforming teams, the natural, all too often, the natural instinct of the sales leader is to go for that motivational push, more energy, more activity, more
Mm.
belief.
Mm.
Um, but what the verdict method does is it gives them a structure to follow. And once the sales start coming in, once the results coming in, motivation takes care of itself.
It does, and I've always been fascinated with sales leaders that thought their job was to motivate their team.
Yeah.
In
No.
fact, no, I mean their role is to create an environment where their team can be inspired, but it presupposes that everybody that's working on the team is self-motivated. They're doing it for a very specific reason, but you need a process, a rigid process that you can follow that is replicable, that's duplicatable, that it's systemized. And you look at all the great sporting teams of the
Mhm.
world, they each have a game plan, and that game
Oh,
plan,
absolutely.
they just get really good at that execution of the game plan
Yeah,
and almost remove the insatiable focus on the results because they know if they follow the game plan, the results will take care of themselves.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think where certainly the verdict method um, is different from, say, spin or any of those other challenger or
Yeah.
the systems that we're all very aware of. They're very good at finding out what the client wants, needs, how we're going to solve that problem. Where we differ is we really focus on having control of that environment, and keeping that customer focused
Mm.
on what's going to be best for them, rather than letting them go off tangentially. And so many salespeople are unfortunately guilty of that.
Well, a lot of salespeople, rightly or wrongly, lead with the product, lead with the service, and they
Exactly
don't
right.
lead with what is the customer's buying process, what is the customer trying to achieve. And I often say to salespeople, could you have a conversation with your customers next week and not mention your product once? And often they turn around and say, well, what do I talk about if I can't talk about the product? I said, well, that's interesting. What do you talk about today? If it's all product based, you might be boring your customer to death. How about you actually start asking some questions around what is the customer trying to deal with? What are some of the challenges? Bring some insights to it. So
Yeah.
that sort of fits in with your first step, the case theory, opening address, and building it around the customer's buying process. Because if there's not a reason for them to want to do anything, then you don't have to go past step one.
Well, absolutely. And it comes in throughout the process as well. So one of the things I make objections as well. Again, it's the slight difference in the sales environment to the court environment. I will sometimes object to the defense. And one of the biggest objections I'll make is that of relevance.
Mm,
The defense will ask a question, and I'll object on relevance. Now, again, that's what you're coming back to. And my objection often goes like this: it's, Your Honor, how does my friend's question help you in determining a fact and issue. How does it help you, Your Honor? How does this extra information help? It doesn't.
Mm.
And that's exactly what you're saying. That's what our sales reps do
Mm.
so much of the time. They're it's all about helping that customer determine, if this is for them or not. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to step back from our product a lot, and we need to look at what is the bigger issue here. Let's identify that.
Because if you can do that, as you go through the 5 steps, the case theory, the evidence-based persuasion, the preempting of the objections, cross-examination with questions to guide rather than to gather, and then the close of the verdict. If you do that well, and the customer is on board because they've said there's a problem that I want to solve, but there's also a problem I need to solve.
That's
If you do that well, they're more likely to agree with you and take the necessary action and not have that buyer's remorse afterwards because you've become, for want of a better term, a buyer's assistant rather than a salesperson.
Absolutely. We've helped to guide to the correct decision,
Yeah.
and that's what it comes back to. My first obligation is to the court. My first obligation is to the customer,
Mm.
and if the customer understands that, if we have conducted ourselves in a way that makes it clear to the customer, my obligation is to you.
Mm.
I'm here. If our product's right for you, I'm going to tell you. If it's wrong for you, I'm going to tell you.
Mm.
As long as they understand that, you know, more often than not, the business is coming our way.
Well, it will, and that's where repeat business comes from.
Absolutely.
Because people are because you're ethical, because you're there to serve them, they got a sense of, hey, this person's not here looking at me as if I've got dollar signs all over me and it's going to be a commission check on the end of it for them. They're here to
Abs-
actually help me solve a problem. Big
Absolutely.
big difference. So
Good.
Blair, been a phenomenal conversation. I know you've got to get to a call. For people listening to this that would like to learn more about you and also connect with you and learn more about the verdict method, where's the
Sure.
best place for them to connect?
Verdictsales.com.au is where you can find me, and where also I offer a 30-minute free call.
Okay.
I'll have a chat with anyone, and whether we work together or not, tell you what I find. See where I think the sales process is going wrong. Also on LinkedIn, there's not too
Yep.
many. To borrow a line from Carlos, one of your previous, there's not too many Blair McGee's on LinkedIn that are former prosecutors and sales trainers. So I can be found there as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
But
I'll put those both in the show notes and certainly encourage people to connect with you. Mate, if there was one last piece of guidance, past piece of advice, the final closing argument to leave people with that either you wanted to highlight, perhaps we've already talked about it, or maybe something we didn't quite get to, what would that be?
I think it would be to never, ever, ever be surprised. Never be surprised by something your customer says,
Mm.
or an objection that's raised before the close. Always be in front of that. Always know what's going to come up. That preparation will stand you in amazing stead,
Yeah.
and that and our first obligation is to our customer.
Mm.
Once again, like it's the first. So I've given you two there. You asked for one, I've given you two. I apologize. I could add under promise and over deliver, I guess, to that as well.
That's all right.
I've given you two when you asked for one. But certainly, remember that our first obligation is to the customer, our client, and then everything else follows that.
Love it. Love it. Great advice and also great conversation. So,
All right,
mate,
thank
thank you. It's been awesome. Keep up the great
you. Yes,
work in what you're doing, both as the prosecutor, but also as the purveyor of all things verdict sales authority. So, mate, it's been a great conversation, and thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
it's been a pleasure, Darren. Thank you for having me. All the best. Bye bye.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it, but also if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.